All right, I'm Ryan Grimm. Welcome to our Thursday morning live stream. We are now 2 weeks into the so-called ceasefire in Gaza, though Palestinians continue to be killed on a daily or near daily level as part of the agreement, though, but that the Trump administration effectively kind of forced on both parties. The flow of life essentials into Gaza was supposed to pick up to levels that we last saw in January of 2025, the last time that there was a brief ceasefire. However, Israel has not met its side of the bargain when it comes to allowing those life essentials in. So, joining me today will be my colleague Sharif Abdel, Kouddous, as well as Eyad Amawi, who is one of the kind of heads of aid coordination inside Gaza. Eyad and Sharif, thank you so much for joining us.
It's good to be here, Ryan.
Thank you so much.
And Eyad, before we get to you, I wanted to ask Sharif if he could kind of contextualize the state of the agreement. Like, what do we understand about what Israel's side of the bargain is? What are they supposed to be allowing in?
Well, I mean, as you mentioned, go ahead,
after
Eyad.
the ceasefire implementation and renew again and again. We hope stabilizing and constant implementations and we pass within 48 hours bad situation where they return to escalation again. In Nusayrat camp, we face more than 70 bombardment. This was a horrible night. But when they announced they renew the ceasefire implementation and continue the implementations, we hope that everything will be okay. Yes, we hope the implementation is complete. But when we read the statistics for the number of trucks entering Gaza, we touch very difference between the reality and between the hope. The reality here is just 926 trucks. Our estimation must entering more than 6,600 trucks within the last 10 days. So there's a big difference between the implementations and our needs. Yes, there's a big difference between the real implementations and the real needs here. So when we talk about the commitment, yes, it's very bad in my estimation, and we need to increase the pressure over the international community to increase the supplying Gaza with our needs. The rubbles and closed roads and desalination water stations, sweet waters, everything is completely destroyed. So when we talk about just halt the big explosions and big attacks, it's excellent, okay, but it's not enough. We will face a bad time when the winter entering Gaza, and no one can meet thousands and thousands of people under the rainy water. The bad circumstances up to this time, there is no real tangible change in the number of tents and number of mobile homes, and all of that things. It's very vital to save our people lives before the winter. So when we talk about the implementation, we talk as a whole package, not just halt the attacks and the remaining points for the humanitarian protocols they missed when they implement it. So this is very clear for us. And I'll talk about the engineering the famine here also. We're still suffering from the inflation prices, shortage in all of the nutritious foods. Up to this time, we have enough amount of flour and some type of canned food. But when we talk about nutritious food like vegetables, fruits, and meats, and the proteins and eggs, everything is slack. There is no enough amount. And even though we have a little, we must pay for a higher cost, and we at some time we pay for 1 kilogram of tomato more than $15. So it's very bad economical situation here. So when we talk about implementations from my side as NGOs coordinator and as civilians, we must touch a change in everything, especially economical situation and relief situation and reopening roads and removing rubbles, entering cements, entering all of the huge machinery that we need to facilitate our life and to let people here resume our partially normal life. So this is the situation now.
And Eyad, I wanted to ask you, just to be clear, the bare minimum amount of trucks, and this is the amount of trucks that were coming into Gaza before October 7th, 2023, was 600 a day. And that is the bare, I'm not sure if Eyad can hear us, but I'll just continue talking and maybe... Ryan, can you type in, just maybe tell him to reconnect, and I'll continue discussing this. But basically, as an overview, what Ryan mentioned in the beginning is that almost 2 weeks into the ceasefire, not a day has gone by without Israel violating the agreement. It has killed Palestinians every day in shootings, shellings, airstrikes. Just last week, in one of the deadliest attacks, Israel killed 11 members of one family when it fired a tank shell on a car carrying the Abu Sha'ban family in the Zaytun neighborhood of Gaza City, as they were trying to return home to check on their home. 7 children and 3 women were killed in that attack. That attack barely made international headlines. It didn't make headlines. It was a small story buried in much of the press. 2 days later, on Sunday, Israel unleashed a wave of airstrikes, the kind of scorched earth terror bombings that have been a defining tactic of the genocide. And this is what Eyad was referring to when he said there was 70 strikes in his neighborhood alone on Sunday. And this came after 2 Israeli soldiers were killed in Rafah in what they claimed was an attack by Palestinian fighters, although it seems that their vehicle drove over an unexploded IED. In any case, Israel's response to 2 of its soldiers being killed was to bomb cafes, tents, schools, homes, killing dozens of Palestinians. And so nearly 100 Palestinians have been killed in direct attacks by Israel since the ceasefire went into effect on October 10th, and more than 300 have been wounded. Now, the official death toll has gone up much more than that, because for 2 reasons. One is about 450 bodies have been recovered from under the rubble. And as the world focuses all this attention on the bodies of dead Israeli captives being returned, not nearly as much attention or focus is put on the estimated 10,000 Palestinians who are missing and buried under the rubble across Gaza. The entire enclave is a massive graveyard of the unknown. Our colleague Abdel Sabah recently did a heart-wrenching story about this, about Palestinians trying to dig out their loved ones from under the rubble with little more than hammers. Israel is not allowing in the equipment, the excavators, a lot of equipment and teams of different resources that need to get in to be able to even begin this process. One woman he spoke to, Vivian El-Har, her entire family was killed in an airstrike just 2 weeks before the ceasefire, when Israel was conducting this massive ethnic cleansing campaign on Gaza City. They managed to pull out the dead bodies of her husband, her 4 daughters, her son, her brother-in-law. But one of her sons, they couldn't get the body out. And he just remains there. And she has called civil defense. They don't have the equipment to dig him out. Abdel Qadir spoke to her, and to add insult to injury, Abdel Qadir spoke to her in a cemetery where she buried her family. It's a cemetery opposite the Ma'madani Hospital, the Al-Ahli Baptist Hospital. It was completely bulldozed and ruined by the Israeli military. So she came to that cemetery to mourn her family, and she couldn't find their graves. She couldn't find their graves because the whole place had been bulldozed, and she was wandering around looking for the graves of her other family members while one of her sons is buried under the rubble. He spoke to another woman, Amina Salim Abu Musa, who has no idea where her son is, her 16-year-old son. He disappeared in May when he went to a so-called aid distribution site run by the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, and he never came back. This is the one that they had near the Netzarim corridor, just south of Wadi Gaza. And she said, in the interview, she said, I don't know if he died, if he was martyred, imprisoned, arrested, if he got shot, and the dogs ate him. And every day since the ceasefire, when the GHF sites were dismantled, she has gone to that site and she just wanders around. She says, I come here just to smell his scent. She has no idea where he is. And this idea of not knowing if he's dead or imprisoned or where he is, I think is the case for thousands of Palestinians, actually. But I think we have Eyad back. And if we can talk about, yes, so we were discussing the aid. So the minimum amount of trucks, even before October 7th to Gaza, was 600 a day. That is part of the ceasefire agreement. In the text, the amount is supposed to be allowed in. There's only 2 crossings that are open at the moment. Rafah remains closed, and so do several others. Even with 600 a day, that is hardly enough, correct me if I'm wrong, to counter or reverse the effects of the famine. Famine is very hard to turn back once it begins. So can you talk about that the famine is still ongoing? I mean, for example, you talked about fruits and vegetables. Your children have, for the past 2 years, have they been able to eat fruits and vegetables, or have they just been surviving on canned food?
Thank you. Look, we pass with a different situation. We add some amount of vegetables, but with the long-term periods, not continuity in the supply. And also, as a civilians, we faced a lot of dangers to obtain a little fresh food from the markets. When in that period, they hit the markets randomly, we completely refused to go to the market and to obtain our foods also, even though the market contained some fresh vegetables.